I'm Ron Reader, and this is Ron Reader Digs the Universe. And today's topic is COVID-19. I've actually had a few requests for this. I've been holding off on talking about it because I like to have some perspective whenever I pontificate, but this thing is happening so quickly, just so fast, everything changing every day that I don't have any perspective on it, just trying to put it all together. I mean, I even had another topic picked out and taken some preliminary notes on it, but it rapidly, last week, COVID-19 became the only thing anybody, including me, could talk about. So here I am. Given my lack of perspective on what's going on right now, I'm gonna make some observations, sort of give everybody a little insight into my thought processes as we all go through this. Maybe a little bit of speculation, but not much. I have organized my talk today into three areas: Trump, economics, race and class, and the national madness. So without any further ado, let's just hop right into it. 1, Trump. The man is obviously totally incompetent as an executive. He has absolutely no idea what he's doing. He is driven by his instinct at the moment, and he's lying his way through it, pretty much like he always does with everything he doesn't understand. And his instincts have driven him to lie, which, he loves anyway, but in this particular circumstance, he is lying in the service of property over people. I mean, he's a sociopath after all, so of course he cares more about property than people. And these lies that I'm talking about specifically have been about suppressing the infection numbers, the infection rate, and the idea here, of course, was to try to hoodwink reality-based investors into standing pat while the market crumbles all around them. And Trump's dumb fuckery had the opposite effect, of course, scaring the hell out of investors all the more, rubbing their noses in the dog shit that is the Trump presidency. And there's also this there's this delay in testing going on that appears to be intentional, just another aspect of the attempt to dupe Wall Street investors. And of course, this delay in testing has made it all the more difficult to fight the disease, and this has freaked out investors all the more, not to mention the fact that it is leading to more infections. So we are effectively going through a national crisis without any national leadership, or rather with anti-leadership, the kind that gets in the way and fucks shit up. That's pretty usual for Trump. I guess we were all hoping this wasn't going to happen, or something like this wasn't going to happen, but it did, and it's shitty. 2, economics, race, and class. Wall Street, as I mentioned a moment ago, is tanking, but it will recover. And most Americans are not investors, so most of us will see few, if any, effects from this at all. Trump's lies aside, what's driving Wall Street's volatility right now, it simply reflects what's happening in the real economy. The social distancing is temporarily shutting down entire sectors, with rippling effects going out toward ancillary industries. And that is what is destroying investor confidence. I mean, of course they've lost their confidence, but the crisis will pass and they'll get over it and the stock market will rebound. That's how it's going to work. But investor class aside, the people who have money to invest aside, the real economic pain is being suffered by workers in the affected industries. Airline industries, of course, but the entire freaking service industry has gone down too. Vendors, event workers and organizers, restaurants, non-essential retail, movie theaters, you name it. My restaurant is now closed for at least 15 days, and that's probably just as well, because with social distancing, people aren't going out to eat, and no customers to wait on means no tips, which means no pay. So it's going to be like that whether I'm there or not. Fortunately for me, unlike the vast majority of the rest of the service sector, I have an IRA left over from my teaching days to raid at a steep penalty if I need to do so. But don't! Wall Street is tanking, and so is my IRA with it! Yeah! These whammies will not stop coming. So, this situation overall about millions of service sector workers suddenly being without work can only lead to a massive rent bomb. Coming on April 1st, millions of ordinarily financially stable Americans won't be able to pay their rent. And then what happens? I don't know. Waves of coronavirus evictions? Your guess here is as good as mine. I mean, Bernie has been going around on the stump talking about this in terms of social democracy, where the social safety net structures already exist, so no legislation is required. You just pump up what you're doing already, and ain't no rent bomb in Western Europe. But here in America, psychocapitalist ideology rules the day. For instance, Moscow Mitch removed mandatory paid sick leave from the House coronavirus relief bill, and he said, and I quote, "I shit you not, Mitch McConnell said that it is an ideological wish list." Of course, the effect of not having guaranteed paid sick leave is that workers are highly incentivized to go to work whether they're sick or not, where they will infect everyone else. Oh, Moscow Mitch, that's brilliant. That's just brilliant. Apparently, psychocapitalist ideology is cool with people getting sick. It really is. As long as people are making money, everything's fine. Half the planet could fucking die, and the capitalists would be cool as long as they're making money. And there's a lot of money to be made in debt. This is some fucking shit. Anyway, I digress. Back to Moscow Mitch and Washington. It is highly unlikely that workers are going to get any federal help anytime soon. I don't see anything on the horizon that will prevent coronavirus evictions, but hell, you never know. But it's not just Washington, D.C. where psychocapitalist ideology reigns. Psychocapitalist ideology is just how we do business in this country these days, like in the business of medicine. Medicine, it's a business. It's not a social service, not a right. Limited capacity, low inventory, these things make good business sense. No? Maybe, but it's fucking stupid right now. I heard last week on NPR that we've only got 100,000 ventilators nationwide and only a fraction of the hospital beds that we are expected to need. So is hospital care, is health care a product, or is it a social service? Suddenly, there can be no argument. It is a vital social need, and psychocapitalist ideology has left us woefully unprepared for this reality. Speaking of this reality, in all disasters in this country, the poor and people of color are hit the hardest. As a fact, always. And I think that this is by ideological design, both racist and psychocapitalist ideology. I mean, there is the post 9/11 style scapegoating of foreigners. You know, the assaults on Chinese Americans. But this hit that the poor and people of color are taking right now it's much more than your old school racism, because most people of color are already on the economic edge. And when society is disrupted, they are the first to go over the edge. America is a racist nation that shits on the oppressed. Coronavirus is, then, in America, a racist disease that shits on the oppressed. I have no doubt that the death toll will eventually show a big skew toward the pole. And I wonder how Puerto Rico is holding out through all of this. 3. The national madness. Back when I was living in New Orleans, I was in a production of Naomi Wallace's play One Flea Spare. It's set during a London plague outbreak during the 1600s in and around an upscale house belonging to an aristocrat and his wife. Both are under quarantine, boarded up inside. A sailor and a vagabond girl sneak inside and end up being trapped with the aristocrats, and they all have to deal with each other, and it gets pretty ugly. I played the crazy street hustler on the outside who periodically comes around to taunt them through the window. Actually, the biggest thing that hit me about being in the show wasn't simply that my character was crazy, but that everybody in this play was crazy. The boredom, the fear, the claustrophobic confinement, crumbling society, social roles losing meaning, everyone constantly on the verge of freaking out. I am feeling the beginnings of that vibe here and now. We may very well be entering our first period of national madness since 9/11. All these conditions stoking passions and hostilities in One Flea Spare are our conditions. And it's going to get worse before it gets better. Will we be able to keep our shit? Personally, I'm far more afraid of a frightened, stampeding herd than I am of illness or financial ruin. In conclusion, my big takeaway over the years from 9/11 and its warm-up act, Columbine, is that you should always use your brain when everybody else around you is freaking out. We are in a fine mess. And freaking out probably will, feel good for a while. But calm, careful contemplation is, of course, obviously the best strategy here. Be skeptical of all politicians, of course, but especially Republicans who always lie. Just don't read anything on social media that isn't grounded in some sort of legitimate established source. Somebody's aunt who works at the Pentagon that heard something about looming martial law, that's not an established source. Look instead to accredited experts. Look to a lot of them. Make sure that they are not fringe quacks, make sure that they're legitimate people. And that is how you construct your picture of reality for this. Calmly, carefully, and contemplatively. Of course, calm doesn't mean slow. You know, we are under rapidly changing circumstances, so be ready to roll with the punches. Most importantly, do not lose sight of right and wrong. A frightened herd desperately needs moral voices. Indeed, if you can keep your shit, it then becomes your moral responsibility, your moral obligation to help out those who can't keep their shit. So push compassion. Push compassion. Push compassion. I'm Ron Reeder, and this has been Ron Reeder Digs the Universe.